meeting to order. We'll begin with item 1, which is introductions. My name is Sterling Nairn. I'm the chair of the West Tarrant Alliance, and usually like the chair, and also city administrator for the city of Westport Village. Marty is the economic development director for the city of Grand Prairie, and is the chair of the North Central Texas Economic Development District. He's here to talk about a little bit what that is, what it entails, and some opportunities for that. So it's all yours, Marty.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sterling. And I would be joined actually by somebody else was supposed to be up here with me. Kate and Rebecca may know that Lucille Johnson from the North Central Texas Council of Governments, who really serves as the key staff member to this whole initiative and has worked so hard, and we'll talk a little bit about that effort that she's put in over several years to get us to this point with a whole bunch of others of us, including many of you. She ended up having to be called out of town for a meeting and said, Marty, it's just going to be you and Lisa. Lisa McMillan, with thanks to her, serves on the board with me. The very first board was appointed this past year, and so we'll touch on that. But I want to thank, before I jump in, I want to make sure and thank Lisa for inviting us. This is what we hope to do in this first year on a frequent basis. We're talking about a very fledgling organization. Hopefully it's even out of the shell and starting to spread its wings a little bit. But just like I was up here talking a little bit with Pat about you guys and how you're, second or third year. And I really applaud regional efforts like this. I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are jumping out and trying to work together in a coordinated fashion. I think that's very wise. In much the same way, what you're doing has been done on a much larger basis in this region, and we'll talk about that a little bit real briefly too when we go through some slides. What I'm going to share with you, and it says establishing an economic development district for North Central Texas, and in fact, before I jump in, so these slides are readable, let me go turn off the light over here real quick. It's the second one, Lisa, if you don't mind. This might make it a little more readable for you. Yeah, here we go. The slides that I'm sharing, Lucille shared with me and said, hey, feel free to update and amend as necessary. So I've tried to do that to bring it up to speed because this was done in recent years. A good many of these pieces were brought together. I put up there we're establishing, but let's face it, what the heck does that mean? What is that? Why would that be important to you? I'm hoping you walk out here today feeling like, okay, I know and understand why this region took the time and effort to get to this point, and I also recognize what that's going to mean for my community. How did we become an EDD? And I'm going to kind of back into this a little bit, but it was a multi-step process, and Lucille's slide had included these checks. You know, we've done everything. We submitted the application, engaged and communicated with regional partners over an 18 to 24-month period. She went out and acquired matching funding, and then I added this on. Okay, we can check off all the boxes. Reached out and did this comprehensive economic development strategy. And so let's talk a little bit about what that means. What in the heck's a CEDDs, Marty? A CEDDs is meant to be a regional plan. And again, has that word comprehensive, just like cities adopt comprehensive plans from time to time, and covering all aspects of city services. Well, that was meant to be the same thing here when you consider economic development through an entire 16-county region. It's meant to pull data together and analyze it. It's meant to serve as a way to coordinate our efforts among communities and EDCs and all kinds of other groups, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But it's meant to kind of inventory, to begin to prioritize and try to come up with a way, especially on infrastructure reasons and few other cases too I'll mention, an idea of where we want to head and maybe how we can begin to get there. It involves as well an advisory board and a technical committee throughout all that process, and a number of us did take part in that to make some recommendations and evaluate that. And let's take into consideration a few of the people in this room, or maybe who were at that time representing cities that are a part of the West Tarrant Alliance. You can see there that Lake Worth and Tarrant County were involved as well. There was a consultant who's a part of this effort who works with Sansom Park. Very integral part of the effort, Jack Thompson, who headed up one of the clusters. And then as well, Robert Stearns was a part of that. And appreciate him and several others that have took part in that effort to evaluate where we wanted to go. We ended up and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this today, but you're going to hear more about it, and I'm going to leave you with a brochure that'll elaborate on it, and it'll refer you to a website that Lucille's putting together that in the coming months you're going to be able to log on to and learn more about this. But it ended up with 6 broad goals: to develop a globally competitive, skilled workforce that encourages businesses to start, locate, and expand in the North Central Texas Council of Governments region, to enhance the North Central Texas region's economic competitiveness, to pursue opportunities and strategies that continue to make the North Central Texas region an entrepreneur-friendly region, to explore and promote comprehensive planning solutions to ensure that regional transportation and public infrastructure meets the needs of citizens and employers, and then strengthen the quality of life through comprehensive community development throughout the region. Finally, to integrate emergency management efforts with economic development strategies in order to strengthen regional economic resiliency. And certainly, there's a few communities to the south of us this past year who've experienced that and will continue to deal with that as to how their economies were affected when Hurricane Harvey passed through. We want to make sure, in the midst of all of our discussions, that we get ourselves prepared for similar incidents, and God forbid they happen, but to get ourselves ready. What was in it for our region? The CEDDs and the formation of the Economic Development District provided this opportunity not only to have a comprehensive approach, but to maybe begin to look further into the future together and give some thought to how we can best achieve this. It gives, this is part of the advantage, and it's a huge advantage, but it gives the members of the district greater access to federal economic development funds and funding opportunities. And I'll give you some details on what those are exactly. Because we haven't, by virtue of not having a CEDDs in place, and I'll show you some examples. Some of our cities have gone after some of these federal funds, but one of the boxes to be checked when they're evaluating your applications is, do you have a CEDDs? Has your region adopted it? If you didn't, did your city do it? 2 of our cities, Dallas and Arlington, had previously adopted a CEDDs. That was the only thing in this region, only groups that had made that, because our region hasn't chose to prior to this. And so we'll share some details about that. And finally, it opens doors to federal funding that we really just didn't even have a chance to access previously, and that makes it important. The whole effort is critically important because it does serve as a conduit for federal grant monies, especially through the United States Economic Development Administration. They have some categories in terms of public works and economic adjustment grants. Adjustment are those ones that when regions are hit by a natural catastrophe, be it a forest fire, let's maybe see some flooding of some kind, or a tornado, anything like that. It allows regions to be able to respond and be in a better position as a result of that, to respond to the needs and restore development. As well, it really ensures that we've got, that we're covered by the EDA with a strategy that's necessary to go after those funds. They have specific requirements, and thank goodness Lucille and her staff did such a fine job of ensuring throughout that CEDDs process, this is what we've got to make sure and cover when we bring this forward to the EDA, and did that, and then subsequently we received approval from EDA as being worthy to create the Economic Development District. So Marty, you've talked about the EDA. Who the heck are they? Maybe you've seen or heard of the EDA. It's the U.S. Economic Development Administration. It's actually a component of the Department of Commerce in the federal government. And so certainly they're legitimate, but not something that our region had really had much exposure to or involvement, because we didn't have a CEDDs and we didn't have an EDD. And yet they've been working in all kinds of other regions, not only in our state, but throughout the United States. I'll show you a map here in a second that illustrates that. And you see there, their mission is to lead the federal economic development agenda by promoting innovation and competitiveness, preparing American regions for growth and success in the worldwide economy. And so it was for us to be able to affiliate with them and be eligible for their funding. We had no choice but to try to create an economic development district. And surprisingly enough, here comes the map here shortly, we were the only metropolitan planning organization or COG region in the entire state of Texas that was not currently designated as an EDA. This map will give you a real good picture, and I follow on LinkedIn the EDA and try my best to repost and push out some of their posts. I'll show you one at the end of today that we try to make sure and do that and put on the hashtag NCTEDD, again as an awareness thing to make people aware. But one of the ones I sent out was, I can't wait till the day that the EDA updates their map. This was in January of 2016. Hopefully they'll do this soon. And show our area colored in. Admittedly, North Central Texas has had a great run and continues to. I'm biased. I think we're in the best region in the entire state, the entire country, and let's admit it, probably the entire Western Hemisphere, if not the entire world. Our economies have been strong. And so up until now, we really didn't think we had a reason to step out. And I don't know necessarily that that's changed, but we want to make sure that in going through that whole process, we want to make sure our region didn't miss out on some funding because we weren't an EDD. And so at least now, you can see the broad range of the EDA's reach throughout the country because regions had gone through that whole CEDDs process. Well, now we're a part of that. It'll leave only one little section in Louisiana, apparently, that was a part of that 5-state southwestern region that wasn't. So we're prepared. If you aren't familiar with COG, I hope and pray you are. But just real quickly, it's a political subdivision of the state. Back in the mid-'60s, this became a rage throughout the country of starting to create councils of governments, or regional councils, as they were referred to. And our legislature took action, and this region was the first to designate itself as a council of governments in 1966. I had the pleasure of working for Bill Pitstick, the original executive director of COG. He came on board, was recruited by a name you may recognize in Tom Vandergriff, who was the very first chairman of the board of the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And Bill had worked with him as a city manager in Arlington years ago. Bill had gone to Lubbock, and then Tom Vandergriff reached back out and said, "Bill, we need you back." And that's when North Central Texas COG was created. It's a voluntary association of governments who choose to affiliate, to become members. It's not a unit of local government. It cannot levy taxes and cannot enact laws and regulations. That's important. So there again, you see January 1966, when I was at COG, we had a softball team, and I had put in the name the 66ers for us to be. Nobody chose it. They chose another name, I think. Regions Legion or something else. But I was like, let's celebrate when we were started. There's now since been 23 others that were created. And so again, the key thing is it's voluntary. It's meant to be of and for and to help local governments to create that collective power as was appropriate with the CEDDs and recognize those opportunities, resolve problems. This will give you a picture. We're only in one of the 16 counties that are comprised in the North Central Texas region. That's a lot of people. At that time, when this was done with Lucille's, it showed 6.85, 7, probably almost up to 8 million people now. And at the time of that snapshot, you can see 237 local governments. When I worked at COG in the late 80s, never forget when I left, it was like 201. So there's been new cities that have been incorporated. There's been special districts that have been made that have come in and affiliated. And so it's an excellent group, and it was appropriate for them to really be under the heading and the guise of the EDA, for you guys to take that on and go through that process. So we're really grateful that happened. And then here's again the key piece in going through all that with why we'd create an EDD. There's funding now that's really available to you, to your communities, to all of us, that we didn't have access to previously, really, for the most part. So, Marty, you talked about all these funds. What are we talking about? In fiscal year 2012 through fiscal year 2016, you can see there we're talking about the EDA investing $1.4 billion in about 3,244 projects. Surely there's an urban and rural split, and as you would imagine, some of this does get concentrated more in rural areas, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's still something that those of us that are in more urban counties can go after. And it's leveraged. I like this too, that it's leveraged dollar for dollar, 1 to 15 in private investment. It's meant to be something that while we're working with developers, we're working with somebody who's thinking of relocating to a community, and they're wanting to maybe redevelop a site or develop a new venture, that they recognize this isn't meant to pay the whole way for them, but is meant to kind of help them and partner with them, and us realize as a result, 15 times the private investment. And so that's substantial. One of those areas is in public works grants. And you can see there, it's really meant for either construction or rehab. We have a couple of the first projects that are coming up, communities that are already looking at going after grants now that this CEDDs is in place. And in our last board meeting, we'd heard about one in Midlothian that ironically is not being brought forward necessarily by the city, but by a community group that wants to do a certain type of unique farmstead, they call it, project. And we anticipate that's going to be coming forward, is already an application to the EDA and going through the process. And then we heard that Corsicana, so we notice we're going down to a more rural area, has worked with, has had a property that is meant to be an industrial park, doesn't presently have the infrastructure associated with it. I believe it's a water line that they need. They've got about a mile that they need to extend it to make it set for development. Have a tenant that wants to go in, will go in if they extend the line. And so it makes it a natural for us to think about, how can we tag on and applaud and support those or make recommendations to the EDA? That's essentially what we're going to do with the Economic Development District Board of Directors and work with the EDA in trying to ensure that those get good hearings and go through that process. Might mention, by the way, too, there's some other grants when it comes to facilities and roads and business parks and others that are identified by you and others as being important to foster new businesses, new job creation, new investment again, and that those qualify under those public works grants too. And then the other category they include is economic adjustment assistance grants. Those are the ones I was referring to when regions end up having some kind of catastrophe, some kind of natural incident that causes them to say, okay, we need some help. And they're able to quickly get the attention of the EDA and make application. We want to be responsive. And you hope and pray we don't have anything like that, but we watch. Certainly weather's always changing. So we want to be responsive, and that's important to be able to have those funds available to do that. You can see there's 23 others. Again, prior to this effort, we were the only COG in Texas that didn't have an EDD. So it's great to see that. It's likewise kind of proof, and you're not going to be able to make out all this. What you see in yellow behind you, Lucille shared this slide with me, and I said, I want to make, at least as a word picture, share this. This is how two of the other major regional COGs in Texas have fared in the last 10 years when it comes to EDA-funded projects. Everything in yellow was funded. That was the Houston-Galveston area. You can see the Alamo area COG. Likewise, almost everything they submitted, a large majority, received funding. Here's ours. Again, you got to have that CEDDs. You need to have the EDD in place. Lucille pointed out to me that even 3 of these weren't even submitted by cities. They were submitted by the University of Texas at Arlington for a completely separate category that would qualify apart from CEDDs. So the word picture here I like is, this kind of sums it all up. You can see that over the last 10 years, throughout our 16-county area, only 5 projects, 5 applicants actually received funding. 20 in the Houston-Galveston area, 23 in the Alamo Area Council of Governments. So we've been at a disadvantage, and it's wise that we stepped out. Certainly, time's right. It's got to be when the political culture's right, when the community, when a region says, yeah, we want to do this. It shouldn't be forced on us, but it is great that at least this region said, let's end this what we've been like in the past and move forward and try to bring about the kind of circumstances we want. I've covered a lot of ground. I realize you may have questions. I'd be glad to try to address them as best I can, or call on Robert, who's on the board with me, and Lisa, and maybe among the 3 of us we can answer them. But tell me what you got or what you want to know more
Maybe
about.
that last slide there, because, you know, we're not a region of ignorant people, so
No, sir.
there's money been left on the table for all this time.
Yes.
Could you contend, I would, that those other two regions that you are illustrating are far more in need and lack private investment to the extent that we have here?
Quite possible. I don't want to make, I don't want to throw stones at anyone in this case, but I do think we've been blessed. We do, as I said at the start, we do live in what I think is the most entrepreneurial, best located, most economically competitive region certainly in Texas, if not the whole world. So it's just not been something that we necessarily thought we'd need. I think the discussion on equity, the realization that what goes on in the 4 urban counties of the 16 sometimes gets the lion's share of press, perhaps, but there's still needs out in other regions that need attention. I would mention, so you're aware, you had to reach a certain level to qualify under the EDD, and we had to have a demographic that met that. It was in Navarro County, where they designated a portion that caused this region to be able to qualify. So that was a part of it too. You did have certain restrictions or requirements as to household income and employment, and during that particular time when we were going through the process, they had a portion that qualified. Yeah.
Tarrant County has 41 cities, and it goes from the city of Fort Worth down to cities that have 5,000.
Even a portion of Grand Prairie.
In the Grand Prairie, yes. So you have your entitlement. But there's an urban county entitlement that already has contracts in place and planning in place and demographics in place. Does that benefit all that you have ongoing relationships? Because we have, in 41 cities, we probably have 15 that have the capacity to manage this.
Oh, I definitely. It's going to be helpful to the management part. I'm glad you brought that up, Patricia. But I would mention, too, and this is something Lucille Johnson has stressed, COG's going to help on the administrative portions. And Lisa's shaking her head. You may remember we talked about that at our last board meeting, because we have some cities who maybe, or it's good that most all the cities, if not all the cities in Tarrant County, are able to respond to receive funds from the EDA and be able to implement them and report back and meet all the federal requirements. But even those who can't, COG will reach out and do that. I may have missed it, but through one of those slides, we made mention the check marks, I think, early on, that we applied for funds from the EDA and got those. Lucille has to do an annual request to the EDA for us to receive an allotment so that she's able to operate and bring us all together as a board and respond with applicants and work in tandem with the EDA.
As a consortium, could the county apply on behalf of very small cities?
I would think that's, Lisa, have you looked into that? I'm pretty sure you can, because you can make joint applications like the community group that we mentioned down in Midlothian. It's not, they're going to work with the city, but it's not the city.
Marty,
Yes.
could you give an example of the kind of projects that were funded through this?
Well, to go back, for instance, I'm not familiar with all of these, but within the one in San Antonio, there's a whole bunch of them that they had that were City of San Antonio related to public works. They had a few with the Port Authority that were economic adjustment disaster assistance. I would think that Houston is going to have several of that type if they're not already in progress. Friendswood, back in 2009, had one for economic assistance for a disaster. So again, they're not all limited to that, but the illustration that I gave you earlier, Mayor, of Corsicana is going to be infrastructure specific. So it's in that public works category, and it's going to be perhaps, let's say, increasing the size of a line to meet the need of a larger business that's going to create jobs and realize that private investment that the EDA is seeking. It's going to be the extension of a water line. Perhaps it's going to be bringing electricity to a location. Working in tandem with Encore and providers. So it's going to be more geared to what the needs are in each specific location, and trying to meet those public works and infrastructure needs that that maybe in the past it's been like a, makes me think of the Blues Brothers and the Wish sandwich, you know, 2 pieces of bread and wish you had meat. There's all kinds of properties throughout our region that may be fully developed and have the full infrastructure and be in great shape, but you got to think there's going to be pockets where maybe there's a road that needs to be extended to ensure the access that a prospect needs. Maybe there needs to be an extension or an upsizing of a sewer line or the building of a pump station, a lift station, to accommodate that project and make it happen. This is kind of meant to be something that fills those gaps and causes our development to spread really throughout the region.
Kind of like a big brother to the CBGA, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking, that basically it's about 75% of our CDBG program with the cities is public works.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this program, it spans the flexibility of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be low income, so you can meet your greatest needs on an ongoing basis.
That's correct.
And you can also leverage, I mean, there's already capital improvements funds from the state, so you can use your state and city funding to leverage and match then the federal funds, so it just expands the ability to get even more funds for larger projects.
And I'm glad you mentioned match, Lisa, because that's really what Lucille has stressed to us all along. For instance, the time that she and I and Robert and others spend on the board in service, and for that matter, even the time we do economic development for our own communities, she's able to report back to the EDA as the in-kind match that they require for the funds they send us to even operate. And so, yeah, anytime you're dealing with the federal government, if you can match it with state funds, you can match it with city dollars, it's going to get the response, and it's just going to help you make sure you maximize the development and make it come about sooner than sitting there and waiting and wishing you had all the revenues you need.
Well, there's a number of mayors in the room today, and I will tell you that with federal funds, the cities are putting in almost as much as our federal dollars, and leveraging local dollars right now. And it's a really good thing.
Susan?
How do local governments apply for these funds, and what's the timeline?
Great question. There's going to be some sessions. We've been talking with Lucille. We want to make sure we're out this year, not only spreading the word about the creation of the EDD, but to also make sure we're sharing with people, you know, how do I do this? And so what we've sought is we want to have some, for lack of a better term, some poster child type projects. That's why we were thrilled to have the Midlothian farmstead coming forward right at the time when the board was just being founded, and to hear about this one in Corsicana, because we want to make sure we get the economic development directors, the mayors, the community groups, the not-for-profits that are putting together that project in Midlothian, and get them out and hold them up to everybody as here's the way to go about doing it. So we're going to be having some sessions and trying to mix those up, and I'd be glad if you're interested to work with Lisa and Patricia and Lucille and see if we can have one of the first ones be maybe somewhere out here in the western part of Tarrant County, maybe right here, if that's of interest. So would that appeal to you guys? Would you like to know more? Would that be of any benefit if we could put something together of that type for you? Maybe a couple hours? I beg your pardon?
We need all the help we can get.
Well, and that's
May 3rd.
that quick, huh? I don't know if we can do it that fast, but I'll certainly reach out to Lucille because she's got that on her list. And as well, to reach out to the EDA rep. We keep telling her we want him to come be at the board. We want to meet him. We've not met him yet, but make sure everybody starts to become fully aware of what we need to do so that we can access those funds. Mayor, we'd be glad to do that. And Susan, yeah, hopefully we can get that set up here sooner than later. I'll make her aware you want to know it. You want to have one, if not the first. Kristen? Hi.
Life, but
You weren't in yet, 'cause I-
with the briefing.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I'm late, but going back to the question about the application and so forth, where it's appropriate, Congressman Granger would be willing to do a recommendation.
Excellent.
Letter. So that's what we do out of our office. So whether it's the EDA process, and Tricia and Lisa in Fort Worth does a good job of sending us those letters to be signed. So that's something we can do.
Did y'all all hear that? That's important. I'm so glad you said that.
It's in the minutes.
I made reference early on about, I don't know if you were in yet when I was talking about your your father-in-law, but he was really the whole reason that the COG got started in the first place. Thrilled that you're serving, continue to serve with Congresswoman Granger. That's a benefit. You really want to claim every opportunity you can, so thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point.
Any other questions for Marty?
I just want to kind of reiterate what Patricia had brought up earlier about the different sizes of the cities, and we did talk about this last time, because a lot of the cities that will qualify and be able to get some of this funding don't actually have full-time economic development staff. Some of them have just a mayor, don't even have much of an administrator, and so it's hard for them, and they may think this is daunting to try to take on an application through the federal government.
Right.
And that's why Lucille and the COG, through this process, will be the administrator. They can help put together the grants for these communities. Obviously, there's some administration that comes out of those grants, and that will be then the COG who will help administer the grant. But there is help for those small communities that don't have the full-time staff that have the expertise to move forward with
And
it.
our staff, we plan to provide technical assistance, especially in the areas of bidding out under federal guidelines. And we bid out all your public works projects through our office. And we'll provide any assistance that you'll need.
So they're trying to fill in blanks as to what the cost is. There might be some help from the county in being able to, if they don't have the ability to estimate. Did you hear that? That one's good too.
I think most of y'all know this, but federal bidding guidelines and activities that you have to do for public works is different than state. So you really need to understand what you're getting into.
This makes me think of that old phrase when I went to basic economic development course way back in 1990, but somebody's pointed out that ducks fly further in formation, 75% further in formation than they do by themselves. You know, that you've got the county, you've got the congresswoman and her office and others saying, and COG saying, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That's pretty good.
Any other questions for Marty?
What do you see the future in the public-private effort that's happening right now for this particular county?
For Tarrant County? Well, I live in the county, and even though I drive east every day, and my office is officially in Dallas County, but I think public-private's, I'm biased, I think it's the only way to go myself. And I think going back to the graph that that I shared from the EDA, you know, this is illustration of that. That goes back to my quote that I shared with you about, you know, ducks flying 75% further in formation. It just makes too much sense to marry private interests with public, and still do it certainly in a very ethical and upstanding way. But certainly to maximize what we can do. I think our region's been doing it for a long time, so let's keep doing it. Maybe don't stop. Don't stop. Great question. I'm gonna hang around throughout your board meeting, and if you want to talk afterwards, I'll be more than pleased to visit with you. And I just want to thank you again that you allowed us, even invited us to come over and talk. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay.
Next, we have action item 4, which is just roundtable discussion of economic development efforts. So, are there any cities or anybody want to kind of talk about what they have going on in their city that may impact other cities? Go ahead. We'll put you on the spot.
Okay,
We're ready.
well, we got a couple projects going in the area. I don't know if we need to say too much, but we have Chick-fil-A has submitted plans in our community, and a couple other ones in fall. But the Chick-fil-A is a big deal for us. I'll keep it low to 202. I've got enough in the drive lane for 22 through the drive-through, so it's a pretty decent project. And it's
Better
very good
double
for
that
our
up.
community.
We have a Chick-fil-A in Westford Village. We don't have enough. It parks out in the streets. I think it's like a drug. Anybody else?
Hi, once again, my name is Erica and I work for the Fort Worth Chamber. And I wanted to thank you guys for inviting the Chamber to come to these meetings. We really appreciate hearing what some of you guys are doing in your communities. Trying to keep it brief, but I just wanted to update you all on what efforts the Chamber is doing as it relates to economic development, not only in Fort Worth, but also in the region. So we have a new executive vice president. I believe he came and presented to you guys at some point last year, Brandon Gangelbach. And we announced 2 weeks ago our official strategic plan for the next 4 to 8 years. And you can, I'm happy to send that link out to you if you want to see specifics. But with that plan, the chamber, along with the city and the county, are looking at trying to see if there is any merit in looking at the western part of the Metroplex kind of coming together to see how we can approach marketing the western area as a region. We want to see if anybody would be open to be a part of that dialogue. Traditionally, the chamber had a Greater Fort Worth Economic Development Council meeting, but that was mostly having somebody come in, talk about what's going on in their communities, eating lunch and leaving. We want this to be more of an action-oriented organization where we come together to help you market your areas outside of Texas, but then also utilize our dollars, our research team, just different resources the chamber has that can help smaller communities in the Metroplex. Just this last year, I worked on a project with Hazlitt, and so I saw that and was here. Lisa's kind of been really pushing the chamber to be more regional in our efforts in trying to connect with other communities. And we went and met with Parker County last month, and they were really excited to hear that we're looking at potentially doing this. So we're hoping to have a meeting scheduled within the next couple of months. We announced our new business attraction pillar head, so I guess he's going to be like a vice president. He'll start our team in 2 weeks. We're also looking at hiring up to 12 additional people in our department at the chamber. So if you know anybody in economic development that's looking for a change, please look at our website. But if you're interested in doing this and being a part of this discussion, if you think it's something that your community would like to be a part of, I'm happy to get anybody's business card or give you mine, and I'm happy to stay after to answer any questions that you might have regarding our efforts. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Our office will be glad to send out anything you want us to send out.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
And I think this group, and we talked about that before, revolving around military, a variety of things. So I think it's been under discussion, and so it'd be great to then tag on and work and funnel everything together.
Great.
And I'll add on a little bit to what Erica's comments are. So I know Osana Marcio gave a brief overview, I guess, at the last meeting that we were going to be presenting the city's strategic plan to City Council. We did that end of last year. If you've been looking at the Star Telegram or seeing the news or seeing articles from D Magazine, you've seen it has generated a lot of very interesting discussion about what's going on in Fort Worth. But I think it's definitely something that we wanted to have a discussion about what's happening in the area and in the region. And I think that the work that the chamber has done on their strategic plan, along with what we're doing from the city side, is really a new approach to how we're trying to advance economic development really regionally. Obviously the chamber is more focused regionally if we're dealing with the city, but a lot of the things that we're talking about will have some specific impacts on our surrounding communities. So if you haven't seen the plan, I'll send the link out as well. I invite you to take a look at it. It's 600 pages, give or take. So if you have nothing better to do, you want to doze off while you're reading it. But it's chock full of data about not only what's happening in Fort Worth in particular, but things going on regionally as well. So we're definitely interested in advancing the conversation and finding ways that we can speak in total about what's happening on this side of the Metroplex.
I'll jump on the tail end of that. I've read both documents. I commend both organizations. I used to get leads from the Dallas Chamber of Commerce because it had such a regional focus, even all the way up in Gainesville, Texas. And I really commend you on looking at that regional approach and taking that. And of course, Fort Worth's efforts, I think, are going to really bear fruit. But Tarrant County is a great location. You guys are still the big dog, and we all kind of look to you to see, how you will impact us, and we want to make sure we're all working together. So I really appreciate y'all's efforts.
I have a question that follows up to what you were just asking. When I'm looking at properties for cities, commercial or multifamily, which is the same, the markets are very small, and they tend to go with the city boundaries, and it can really hurt the smaller cities. Is there any way to adjust the markets to make it more regional when you're doing recruitment and you're trying to bring people to your area?
So there are. normally traditionally what the chamber has really focused on is really Fort Worth proper, and I think that's just because of how we've been doing economic development and what we traditionally have been doing with our leadership over the last 16 to 20 years. I think with our new leadership, we're looking at purchasing programs that will enable us to look at markets in a more of a niche way and to be able to look at the overall and then to look down to zip code, streets, drive times. We've never had programs like that at the Fort Worth Chamber. We've done everything kind of based on the census in a very proper, Fort Worth proper way. And so with these new programs that we're looking at purchasing, we'll be able to do that and then also share that information and demographic information and reports with all the other communities that we're wanting to work with.
Well, wouldn't that be something would fit into this as a project to assist with the funding?
I think that yes.
Okay, I mean, instead of Fort Worth trying to eat the elephant in one bite, I think the region can take a look at it.
I think that that's part of the discussion. I think when we looked at, I know Thad mentioned the Dallas Regional Chamber's efforts. When we looked at how they historically became a regional chamber, we wanted to approach it in a different way and talk to different communities to see what they want from us and what we can do for them and they can do for us. And there are some ways that we can partner together to work on different projects and help bring in not only dollars but resources from you and also from us.
Well, I think it makes sense too from the standpoint of when you're talking about marketing the region. Fort Worth, they have housing that's right in the Northwest School District, which is also Hazlitt School District. So those communities are together, or Keller School District, which also has Keller and other areas. So the communities are combined because those people are living in the same school district. So we need to tell the larger story, and I'm hoping that that's going to, the future is going to move in that direction.
Well, that project Erica talked about, Lisa and I have been working on it, trying to get it across the goal line, but it's not a small one. It's a $100 million project. So, I really appreciate those efforts. Before this new change, that would never come across our desk.
Well, the growth is going to dictate what happens. Fort Worth's going to run out of dirt, and development comes out. So does the business. So personally, I don't have a concern. I think these municipalities will stand very well on their own as the development comes to them. That's what I've seen.
So when you cross the Oklahoma line, is it trying to see
Not anytime soon. There's a lot of vacant land.
I think the legislature put a stop to your land grab.
Anything else?
Now, the only thing is that we use CoStar. I don't know if y'all use it, and that's, you can kind of blend, if you know the area, you know the communities, you can blend the marketing. But I will tell you that developers look at CoStar when they're trying to find a place to come here. And it's not beneficial to a lot of small cities what they're seeing.
I think CoStar is definitely not the best resource, I think it's a good resource, but it's a matter of knowing your community, really knowing what's in the market, and being able to pitch it. Right, yeah, I would agree.
Maybe wise to get this alliance to team up and talk to CoStar, see if they would give you a price break.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to introduce you to somebody who might have worked with in the past that might help you do that.
By the way, the Mayor's Council has CoStar, and anybody in this room has access to it. So just call Lisa or myself. Lisa. No. You were looking at Lisa. I said Lisa, but it's Susan. Susan won't look at me. I don't know what to do.
All right, moving on, other business. As you can see, we have set the 2008 dates. They're going to be quarterly for the first Thursday of the month. The meeting dates will be May 3rd, August 2nd, and November 1st. I'll put those in your calendar now, but Patricia and her staff who helps organize this will be sending those out, reminders. So, any other new business? Again, thank you, Marty. I think you'll hang around if anybody has questions, wants to do this part or whatnot, but this meeting is adjourned.